fortunately. But Mother Nature took care of a lot of our problem. The hydrocarbons, it's down at 4,000 plus feet deep. The brine water's down there too. Bad stuff's down there. And our water aquifers are anywhere from 50 to 300 feet, generally speaking. And Mother Nature didn't already take care of the problem. That bad stuff would have contaminated before humans were on this planet, because it's the geology that's taken care of. So it's so important to get the well constructed right, otherwise you provide a conduit for that to contamination. And so they're triple casing, they're triple cementing, because they've had some instances over in Pennsylvania and Marsalis, and the technology is improving every day, and we can't do that. So, we provide, that's why I talk about government doing the right thing, the right policies that restore confidence in the private sector and our entrepreneurial spirit, because what's made this country great is our system of government, our free market system, and our entrepreneurial spirit, the ability for people to chase their dreams and willing to risk capital and take risk. No guarantee from the government that they will be successful. Lots of times, there's been a lot of people that have failed several times before they were successful. They probably maybe more successful because they experience. And that's what's made this country, because we've taken this country and we've created what I call wealth creation. We've taken something, a resource, and made it better. There's three ways you create wealth, in my opinion. One is you develop our natural resources, you mine it or drill it. Two is you raise it, agriculture, you plant that soybean seed, and the rest of it happens. And the third is manufacturing, you make it. You make something, you're taking things and you're making it better what people need, and that's creating wealth, creating opportunities and jobs for people, and that's what we should provide that environment. And unfortunately, under this administration, we're under attack. Our whole system's under attack, our freedoms are at risk. And what I want to tell you, I want to congratulate you for being an activist. But we need to fight together, and I know Jim said sometimes we don't do enough. And the football analogy is a pretty good analogy. There's some in my side of the aisle that want everything 100%. Well, we can't get there right now because of the dynamics in Washington. We don't control enough. And throwing the football, the Hail Mary pass, is risky, and it doesn't really succeed. But if we keep moving the ball down the field and then get to and hopefully, because ultimately the people of the United States are going to make the determination where they want this country to head at the ballot box. And that's why it's so important. We absolutely have to win the Senate. Because if we can win the Senate, I think, I'm 99% confident that we can stop the executive orders and all this nonsense and really shut them down in this last 2 years of his presidency. I didn't mention all the scandals. I should talk just a minute. Only about time here. I want to do Q&A. Benghazi and the IRS isn't over. It takes a lot of time. I'm sure you feel the same way. It is despicable that we left 4 Americans behind.
Yes.
That's not America, and it makes you sick to your stomach, and definitely cover it. IRS, I got a kick out of the president on Bill O'Reilly. He said, "Bill, there's not a smidgen of evidence that there was any wrongdoing." Well, if that's the case, why did the lowest learner have to take the fifth?
Exactly.
Just amazing. I think we saw from back in the Nixon years that what happened to cover-ups worse than the actual. Let me tell you what's happening. The House has been having oversight hearings. The House is doing investigations. We're subpoenaing documents. And the problem is the executive branch has all that, just the way the nature of the thing is. And extracting that information is a slow, tedious process. You do finally get it. Sometimes it comes in, most of it's redacted. But so it takes time. You have a Justice Department under our Attorney General that's no help at all. But I'm being very nice about that. So that's where we're at. But I think more and more is coming out. But if it wasn't for the House Republicans, we, the American people, would probably not know much about any of this. We've brought this up and our oversight. But if we didn't control the House, the oversight hearings wouldn't have been happening. And I think there will be justice done. I can't say when, but we're not giving up because these are core fundamental values and principles that we cannot give up on, because if we do, we just ceded some of our responsibility to the executive branch, and you know, it just you can't let it happen, because it's continued erosion of our founding documents and our founding principles. So I could talk for hours. Let's ask two questions.
I had two quick ones for you. One, I missed the figure you gave for the food stamps, the reduction in food stamps when you raised the requirement to $20 for that. Would that be the heat, the help with the gas?
Yeah. Yes.
So when you raised it to $20, it reduced it by 10. What's that? Billion.
Over the 5 year. I think it's a 5 year period in that one.
Okay, and then secondly, you made reference to, and I wasn't following, I don't know if anyone else in the room did, but you're talking about this 967 versus this 1012 versus the Democrats. What is that again?
Okay, this is on the discretionary side of spending, okay? Just 1/3 of the spending. When I came to Congress, the discretionary spending, I think, was close to 1.1 trillion. And we've lowered it. We're down to like close to 08 levels. And then when the sequester kicked in, if the sequester would have stayed totally in place, we just made an adjustment here for mostly because of defense. We would have been, I think it was 967,
okay,
remember right? And we ended up at 1012. So it's because it's easier to say 1012 because you think that we're talking at 10, we're talking a trillion, okay? 0, 1, 2. So it's slightly over $1 trillion. The Democrats, the president wanted 1058, so they wanted $1,058 billion. I got the 1058 right. The commas and the zeros, I just it's just ridiculous. But so what happened? We got where the best we could get. Okay, and that's where. And it's kind of. I didn't mention the debt ceiling. I voted against the debt ceiling this time, only for the reason is I don't believe we should do clean debt ceilings. Historically, debt ceiling increases is an opportunity to address why we have to keep raising the debt ceiling, you know. And the fact of the matter is we didn't have 218 votes in the House for anything. And I voted for the debt ceiling, you know, in the past Congress when we offset the spending or put reforms in there so we don't have to do it. But at some point in the debt ceiling, the American people should be asking the question, you know, we can't keep raising the debt ceiling because at some point, raising the debt ceiling is not going to solve the problem. You know, you talk about the markets get all nervous and the economists, you know, are going to default and all that, and we raise the debt ceiling and it was okay. Well, at some point, it's not going to be okay. And just raising the debt ceiling is not going to save us from going into default or the markets crashing. And I don't want what happened in 08 and 09 is a precursor. But being a former hog farmer, I understand economics and supply and demand and precursors, because we've seen that in the hog business. And there's a strong likelihood, don't want it to happen, where 08 and 09 economic downturn could be a precursor of something much, much worse. And that's where we're heading. Now, I think we're slowing it off a little bit by cutting that spending and not letting it grow. But we've got to get reforms in place in that mandatory spending at some point. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen with the current people in the Senate and the White House. It's just not going to happen. And that's why it's so important to get the Senate and turn this thing around. And I think, you know, the president's lost a lot of credibility. We've got people on the Obamacare thing, you know, they don't understand why things are happening. You know, we talk, you know, what's all happening. They just don't understand that. And I was on a radio program last week in Mount Vernon, about 45 minutes, and people calling in. Almost all the calls were about people saying, Obamacare is terrible, it's causing problems, we don't like it. And so we need to keep our focus. And the good thing about now, so the rest of this year, we don't have any things that have to get done. There are no cliffhangers, you know, you gotta pass the budget and pass the appropriation bills. We're all done with that. So we can focus on what we would do if we were in control, put our solutions forward and focus on that and not focus on what they want to focus on. And I don't know about you, but I'm just unbelievable. The biggest scam I've seen is with the CBO when they came out and said that that this Obamacare thing is good, these people have more time to pursue other activities. Yeah. Think about this, I'm going to digress here a little bit. The President's State of the Union address, this economy is now on record as being the worst recovery in the history of this country, okay? This is, I don't want this to be the new norm, but this is the Obama economy. His solution to this stagnant economy is to raise the minimum wage and extend unemployment benefits. That's his solution. Think about it.
And over-regulate.
And, yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, I think we've had 25% inflation since then. Let's evaluate our money at least 25%.
Yeah, probably, I don't know. Yeah. I think what's saved us so far is the reason the feds were able to do the QEs and all that is because the dollar is the world currency. If we weren't the world currency, I don't think, we're still the best place to be, because there's, but at some point, if we act like a third world country, third world economy, and banana republic, we won't be the best place, and that's when it collapses, and that's when we have a debt crisis. And don't ever want this ever happen, because, well, if that were to happen, your net worth, if you have any value in your house, in equity in your house, stocks, everything would just collapse. Your net worth would go, virtually whatever. So, yeah.
What about the situation in California where they're talking about splitting it into 5 or 6 states?
Well,
I'm kind of, worried about that situation because that's where Pelosi, I guess it's going to be on the ballot.
they're trying. There's a apparently.
They got enough people on, put it on the ballot.
They're signing petitions. My understanding. There's some industrialist, a billionaire that's putting money up in there, and then, of course, they can do that in California, and then they have to change it. But then to actually create, well, it's one state already, so it'd be 5 more states, because they're talking about splitting it 6 ways. Congress would actually have to approve that, my understanding, and I don't think that's going to happen. That would be 5. That would be 10 more United States senators. Well, I was reading an article last night. I was thinking about that. And my first thought was, oh my God, 10 more Barbara Foxers and Feinsteins, and I thought, and then I thought, well, maybe not so. I'm just thinking crazy, because there's some parts of California aren't bad. It's all the crazies who live on the coast, and they're no problem. If you go out in the rural areas of California, it's probably not as bad. So I'm just digressing here big time, but I don't think it's going to happen. Put 5 more stars on the flag too. Well, now that's more viable when you look at Michigan, you look at Illinois, get rid of Cook County. Now in New York State, with the new mayor of New York City. I don't have to say any more. So, yeah, we could end up with 100 states, huh?
I remember Obama tried to get us to 57.
Yeah, I know, he had some trouble with
I got this claim the press visitor on 57.
Anyways, they can talk about that, but I'd be very surprised it's going to happen. I don't think that. I can't remember, because I wasn't very old when Hawaii became a state. But I think that might be constitutional. In fact, I ratified the Constitution, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Constitution, so I think I'm pretty sure you did.
It's going back to territorial days, so basically, any new state constitutionally has to be invited into, they have to establish the criteria.
Well, I think the way it works, Congress has to pass the resolution or whatever, then it goes out to the states for ratification, like a constitutional amendment, I think. I hope it's that way, because, I know there's another area called PR, Puerto Rico, that'd like to be a state, because I think probably better off being a territory, probably more federal out there. Yeah.
Okay, my question is, I understand what you're doing. Republicans, by passing things to show how it would be if you guys were in power, we,
Yeah.
conservatives, it's not, just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you're conservative, some of them are
Yeah.
liberal. But anyway, I understand, but the people don't out there. And I have a lot of friends who are Democrats, unfortunately. I used to be one.
You haven't converted them yet?
I've tried it, but see, they believe, this is what they that you all are passing something, you know it's not gonna go anywhere. So it's a waste of time, and we gotta get rid of you. And I try to explain to them that if it wasn't for you guys stopping from this horror, it would be so much worse. They don't believe it because they believe everything that bad happens is the Republicans. I used to believe that. I was a Democrat for 35 years. I've been a Republican since Reagan. But it's hard because
Well,
our PR is bad.
yeah.
Our Republican PR is bad.
Well, we don't have the media on our side, that's the problem. And you know that, I know that. Way I would address that, maybe I try to give you some advice here when you talk to your friends. There's been some bipartisan stuff passed. We did the bipartisan budget, we passed the anonymous appropriation bill. We finally got away from the CRs and continuing resolutions, because those are disasters. We're trying to get back to regular order where, you know, we set the priorities in the budget, where the spending's gonna go, what we're gonna do. Now we're entering election season, okay? And so some of this is, you know, doing this, so people know, and we're gonna try to highlight some of these bills and show what we're gonna do, because we're in the campaign season, and that's how the process works, okay? In another example, my Water Resources Reform Development Act, the last one was passed in '07. We passed it out of the House 417 to 3. Can't get much more bipartisan than that. Right now we're in conference. We have some issues with, you gotta be careful what I say here, with some of the senators. Doesn't matter what party they're in. It's something about those 6-year terms, I just think there's a problem, but anyways. There was, last year, I think there was like 72, 75 bills that became law. I think 56 of them originated in the House, only 16 originated in the Senate. Because there's been a criticism that we're the most unproductive Congress. Well, in some ways, that's not all bad. It depends what you're producing. You know, the Congress, before I got there in 09 and 10, I came in on January 11, they produced Obamacare, they produced $800-some billion stimulus with only 4% went on infrastructure. A lot of people don't know that. You know where the rest of it went. So, you know, it depends, you know, what determines productivity. You know, there's some people out there that say, well, we're just a terrible Congress not doing our job because we're so unproductive, but that's not always bad, okay? It's something you look at. I gotta tell you a quick story. You know, we shamed the senator into passing a budget. It was 5 years the budget hadn't been passed. House has passed the budget every year, okay? And how we shamed him into it was a gimmick. No budget, no pay. Now, I like to say probably 97 to 100 senators don't need their paycheck because it's pretty long, but they were embarrassed. And the best thing I saw, I was home one Friday night. It was 11 o'clock, and getting ready to go to bed. So I thought I'd just channel surf a little bit. And I happened to turn on C-SPAN, and my God, the United States Senate was on the floor voting. And I thought, this is so great, because I've been there on the floor of the House at 2 in the morning voting, and those guys have been home, you know. And so I watched for an hour, and they were voting on Keystone Pipeline. They were voting on some other things. And we've got, this could get interesting, especially in those half a dozen states where the Democrat senators are in trouble. We've got some Democrat senators in red states on record voting for the Keystone Pipeline, for example. You know, now their budget they passed wasn't a budget we could support because it was massive tax increase and more spending, and that's where they're at. So when people, I know some people will say, I'm not going to vote because I'm not happy with the Republicans. Okay, those people should be as much in blame as Obama and his cronies. Okay, because while you're ensuring the election of liberals. Okay, and I would argue, and Ann Coulter said this the other night, any Republican's better than any Democrat. Okay, and even the Republicans, maybe we don't think they're good enough, we at least can work to persuade them, because you're not going to persuade the Nancy Pelosi cronies. Okay, so I keep that in mind. And the other thing that's interesting I've noticed, I noticed this when I was in the House, but I really noticed it in Congress. This country, what makes this country great too is we're so dynamic and diverse. And if you look around the country, there's some areas that are really, really conservative, and there's some areas that are more moderate. And I mean, Chris Gibson, not Chris,
Matthews.
No, there's two together. There's a Chris Gibson came with me from New York, and Chris Collins from freshman from New York, from Buffalo area, businessman, good guy, and He goes, yeah, my Tea Party friends and stuff really love me, I got a 52% heritage voting score. And in New York, that's conservative. You know, in South Carolina, most of Ohio, that's not very conservative, but I mean, that's just, you know, that's what you're dealing with. People, you know, see things a little different. But when it comes down to the core, you know, we are for limited government and more opportunity by emboldening, empowering the people. And this government, you know, Obama government, it wants to increase dependency. He's essentially bribing people to support. So, he's saying, yeah.
Presidential resolutions are getting out of presidential resolutions are getting out of control. And then you go to student loans, and you know, I talked to another congressman, and he told me, oh no, well, it's only about 3% or something. You know how much the Parent Plus loan is? It's nearly 9% interest. And you know, right now, I've got 3 kids in college, and 9% guaranteed absolutely by the government in this economy is absolutely ridiculous. Oh, but
Well, Obama took the student loan program over.
yeah.
You know that. Yeah. So I'm sure it's going to be a very efficient program now.
Oh, yeah. So what do you make of the presidential?
Executive orders and all
Yeah,
that.
are you guys gonna do anything to fight it back?
Well, we're trying. The House is doing some stuff, but we can't do it. We can't stop them. Now, my understanding, if we had a Senate, we could do a lot. Specifically, just came to mind, I chair a committee on T&I. It's called the Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee. I have jurisdiction of the EPA and the water stuff, clean water. We sent a letter to Nancy Stoner, who's head of the EPA water side. She's the number 2 person. And Secretary Joanne Darcy, who's Army, Secretary of Army Civil Works. We sent a letter because they got back in October, early October, because